What's up everybody, I'm Seth Fowler and today we're taking a look at the sneaker releases in the second half of January and whether I think each one of those releases is going to sit on shelves or sell out. First off, I want to give a huge thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Squarespace. Whether you need a domain, website, or online store, make it with Squarespace. It's been about a year and a half to 2 years of me making these sit or sell videos, and by now I'm sure you guys are all totally familiar with how this works, so let's just jump right into it. Starting things off on January 14th, we've got the Nike Court Vapor Kyrie 5. This sneaker is sort of a mashup between the Kyrie 5 and Nick Kyrgios's Nike Court Vapor. So the shoe is made up of a low-cut version of the Kyrie 5 on the upper, and then the midsole and the outsole is made up of the tennis-specific Nike Court Vapor. Essentially, this shoe is sort of a double signature for both Kyrie Irving and Nick Kyrgios, except it's more of a tennis-specific model. Like we've seen with some of the other limited tennis-specific mashups, I think the sneaker will be pretty highly coveted, however resale I don't think will be that high. That being said, I do think the sneaker probably will sell out on the 14th when it drops, so for that reason I have to give it a sell. Next up, on January 15th, we've got the release of the Nike KD11 in black, white, racer blue. The KD11 is not that great of a sneaker. It's not a bad looking shoe, but on court it's nothing special, and I don't think people are too excited about any more colorways of this sneaker releasing. I'm kind of just over here waiting for the next KD. I'm hoping that they do something a little bit different than they've done with the KD11s and the KD10s, because they've all kind of been the same. But we'll just have to wait and see. I wouldn't be surprised if the KD12 is just more of the same. That being said, there's nothing really special about this colorway, and I'm pretty sure we've already seen some pretty similar colorways released a couple months ago. So for that reason, and also the fact that it's probably going to be a GR, I just don't see this sneaker selling out, so I'm going to have to give it a sit. Following that up, we've got an Allred version of the Air Jordan 33. The Air Jordan 33 is a pretty solid basketball sneaker and one of the first recent Air Jordans to release that people have actually considered wearing casually. You don't see many people rocking like 29s or 31s off court. The 33 also comes with a pretty interesting lacing system that doesn't actually involve laces, and this all-red colorway with quilted detailing is by far the most eye-catching. Because of the more luxury details put on this shoe, I think the sneaker is aimed squarely at lifestyle wear and less so performance wear, but as someone who doesn't really rock 33s casually, this sneaker just doesn't appeal to me, and I don't think it's going to appeal to a lot of other people either, so I think the sneaker is probably going to sit. And rounding off the 15th, we've got one of the biggest dunk releases since the Diamond Dunks that released back in November, Jeff Staples' Nike SB Dunk Low Pro Panda Pigeon. This is the third Staple Pigeon dunk to release, and it's by far the most eye-catching. It's got a very contrasty white and black upper, hence the name Panda Pigeon, and of course you've got that signature pigeon embroidery on the heel. Like every other Staple Pigeon dunk drop, this sneaker has had a very tumultuous release. The first Staple Pigeon drop of course started those famous riots in NYC, the second one still had some riots, but not as crazy, and so far out of like the 5 release dates that they have set up, one of them's already been completely destroyed by bots. The main release, however, is on January 15th on the Sneakers app and probably will give you the best shot at grabbing the sneaker. This shoe will definitely go down in history as one of the most coveted Nike dunks, so if you're a dunk head, this is a shoe you definitely don't want to miss out on. So as you could probably figure out, this sneaker will definitely sell. Moving on to January 17th, we've got the release of the Air Vapor Max 19 Impossible Air. I just did a review on the Air Vapor Max 2019, so if you guys haven't seen that, make sure to check it out by clicking the link at the top of the screen. But the general takeaways from that review is that it's generally the same Vapor Max Air unit, except it's got a different upper. This particular colorway comes with a black or dark gray upper with green and pink hits. As someone who's not a huge fan of the Vapor Max or the Vapor Max 2019, I definitely will not be picking up this shoe, but for some reason Vapor Maxes are extremely popular sneakers, so I think a lot of people will be going for it. Maybe not sneakerheads, but I feel like a lot of normal people walking into Foot Locker will see them on the shelves and probably pick them up. But because they are just kind of another Vapor Max 2019 colorway, I don't think anyone's too excited about them, and I really don't think there's anything special about them, so for that reason, I'm gonna give them a sit. Next up, we've got two new monochromatic colorways of the M2K Techno coming in both linen and atmosphere gray. It also looks like they've upgraded the materials of each shoe as well over the materials of the regular M2K Techno. That material change also comes with a price bump of around 30 bucks. These sneakers are both fine. I'm not really into the M2K Techno, so these aren't shoes that I'll be on the lookout for, but if you are on the lookout for them, it shouldn't be too hard to find because they probably are gonna sit. And then rounding off the 17th, we've got two new colorways of the OffWhite Air Max 90. The original OffWhite Air Max 90 seems to be a fan favorite from the 10 collection, and I think the fact that they're re-releasing this sneaker in different colorways is probably a good thing. It gives more people the chance, like myself, to actually own these sneakers, albeit not in the same colorway, but in a lot of people's minds, better colorways. I personally prefer the black colorway because I think it looks cleaner. The beige colorway isn't bad, but in my opinion, I think that colorway looked better on the Blazers. Regardless, both of these colorways are unbelievably hyped, and even though Nike and Nike Sneakers haven't officially announced the release date of either of these colorways yet, the release date has already been announced on sites like Sneakers and stuff. As you could probably figure out, both of these sneakers are definitely gonna sell. Next up, on January 18th, we've got a somewhat early release of a BHM colorway. That release is the Air Jordan 2 BHM. While I think this is a good colorway, and of course the theme behind the sneaker is important, the sneaker itself isn't that great looking. The Air Jordan 2 is not that popular of a silhouette, and I would have personally preferred to see this colorway on something like a 3 or a 1. Of course, there definitely will be people out there who are very excited about this sneaker, however, I don't think it'll be enough to really make this sneaker sell, so for that reason, I'm gonna give it a sit. Moving on to the 19th, we've got the Adidas Ultra Boost 4.0 Chinese New Year. Unlike previous Chinese New Year versions of Ultra Boost, this year it's kind of plain and kind of boring. This shoe is dressed in a black and gray prime knit upper with red stripes on the midfoot cage, and that's about it. It's definitely not a bad looking Adidas Ultra Boost. I think it's a really clean colorway, but for what we've come to expect from the previous years, I just don't think this guy cuts it. That, paired with the fact that the Ultra Boost hype has really started to die down, I don't think this sneaker is going to be on a lot of people's lists, so for that reason, I think it's going to sit. Following that up, we've got the release of the Nike Air Foamposite 1 in Midnight Navy and Gun. I'm not really sure why Nike is still making Foamposites, or at least making GR colorways, because no one is really buying them. And this colorway in particular is just kind of boring. It's not anything special, and the Foamposite really seems to be an outdated silhouette. I spent the first 18 years of my life around Baltimore, so there's always going to be that sort of like Foamposite nostalgia, but as of right now, I'm over it. Put them in the vault, Nike. No one really wants them, and this colorway in particular is just boring, so for that reason, I'm gonna give this shoe a sit. The next shoe to drop is the Air Jordan 4 Black Laser, and this is a sneaker that I've said multiple times in my Twitch streams that I kind of have a problem with. And what I mean by that is that all the other previous laser versions of Air Jordan sneakers were actually laser cut. They actually laser etched all the little details on the leather upper. This time around though, they're not doing that, they're just printing them. So why is it a laser? The pattern might be the same as previous lasers, but it's printed. So why don't you call it the printed force? I don't know, just something else. They're not lasers. That being said, they are a pretty nice looking sneaker. They've got a black upper with a gum outsole, so you can't really go wrong with that, especially not on an Air Jordan 4. And as much as I don't want to like the shoe because of that naming technicality, it's still a pretty nice looking sneaker. I also think a lot of other people are gonna like this sneaker because of that super clean colorway, so I'm gonna be optimistic. I think the sneaker is gonna sell. And then, rounding off the 19th, we've got the second release of the Nike Air Fear of God 1, this time around in the light bone colorway. This Fog 1 obviously comes in a different colorway than the previous Fog 1, but what you might not have known about this sneaker is that it actually comes in a different material makeup as well. The Black Fear of God 1s came in a primarily mesh upper, but this time around the light bone colorway seems to come in sort of a light suede or soft leather upper. I thought the Black Fear of God 1 was an excellent sneaker, and I think this light bone colorway is no different. This is definitely a sneaker I'm trying to pick up. But of course, it's going to be extremely difficult, just like the black pair, and I kind of don't see myself picking up a pair without someone like StockX helping me out. So if you're trying to grab a pair for yourself, make sure to be on your game, enter all the raffles that you can, because this sneaker is definitely going to sell. Following that up on January 21st, we've got the newest LeBron 16 Equality dropping. Last year's Equality LeBron 15 was one of the most limited LeBrons made in a very long time. And I think this mismatched black and white version of the sneaker is probably going to be the same way. Of course, this time around the colorway graces the LeBron 16 and not the LeBron 15, but I really don't think the number matters. I think people are going to be hyped about this sneaker either way. The release procedure of this sneaker is not yet known, but expect it to be extremely limited and almost impossible to get. And of course, this shoe is definitely going to sell out. Speaking of one of my favorite releases of the last couple years, Squarespace. That was a corny transition. Squarespace has these awesome website templates that allow you to easily create a very powerful online identity. There's a huge variety of templates for a wide range of projects, whether you're pursuing your side hustle or promoting your main gig. One of my favorite things about Squarespace's all-in-one platform is that there's never anything to upgrade, install, or patch. Ever. And if you ever have an issue, Squarespace provides 24-hour award-winning customer service. Squarespace makes it very easy to set up your own domain, and if you already have one, they make it very easy to transfer as well. And of course, if you have an online store like myself, Squarespace makes it really easy to sell products and services online. So head over to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, head on over to squarespace.com/Seth Fowler for 10% off your first website or domain. Moving on to January 22nd, we've got the special release of the Nike Kobe 1 Pro 81-point game. This sneaker comes in a very minimal white and purple colorway, and to my knowledge, it's releasing on the anniversary of Kobe's 81-point game. Even though recent colorways of the Pro haven't really been selling out, because of the limited nature of this shoe and the fact that it's releasing on the anniversary of that game, I definitely see this shoe selling out. Dropping on January 24th are three colorways of a shoe that I'm not really a fan of, the Nike ISPA Air Max 270 SP SOE. The three colorways that I mentioned are orange, white, and black, and I totally get the inspiration behind the shoe and how this is some high fashion, high designer version of the sneaker. All that's fine, but have you looked at it? Have you seen it? It's just like a weird wicker basket version of the Air Max 270, and I will not be buying this sneaker. I'm sure there are some people out there who will buy this sneaker because they like the way it looks or they're brainwashed, but I think a majority of society probably will avoid this one, so for that reason, I'm giving it a sit. Following that up, on January 25th, we've got the Nike Kyrie 5 in the Just Do It colorway. This is a black Nike Kyrie 5 with the Just Do It branding plastered all over it. It features crazy multicolor accents, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who are actually pretty drawn to this sneaker. Not only that, but the Kyrie 5 is also a pretty solid basketball performance sneaker, so I'm sure there's going to be people picking up the shoe for that reason as well. However, I don't think there's too much hype behind this sneaker, and I don't think it's going to be very limited, so for that reason, I think it's going to sit. Next up, on January 26th, we've got two Air Maxes from the I-95 pack. There's a black and neon green Air Max 97 and a black and orange Air Max 95. Apparently the design behind this pack is actually inspired by the I-95 highway, which is kind of a weird inspiration. The colorways of both of these sneakers are fine, they're nothing special. I think the striped accents on the 97 aren't bad, but overall I think they're pretty plain and the inspiration is pretty weak, so for that reason, I think they're gonna sit. Also on the 26th, we've got the release of the Air Jordan V JSP Lanie. We haven't actually had a Lanie-inspired Air Jordan 5 colorway in a while, and usually when we get them, they have a white upper and blue and yellow accents on the midsole. This time around, the entire upper is draped in blue suede with a speckled midsole, which is a pretty big departure from previous Lanie colorways. I have no idea how limited this sneaker is going to be, but I would assume it's going to be relatively hyped because of the fact that it's a Lanie colorway, so for that reason, I think it's going to sell. And then, rounding off the 26th, we've got the debut release of the Nike PG3 in the NASA colorway. Paul George's Nike signature sneakers have always done pretty well, and the fact that this is a brand new silhouette dropping, I think a lot of people are excited about it. Not only that, but this orange and silver NASA version of the sneaker has a lot of people excited, and I do think this shoe is going to be relatively limited. If you are a fan of Paul George or just NASA collaborations, this is a great sneaker to grab, and I definitely think this shoe is going to sell out. Next up on the 27th, we've got a pretty interesting Travis Scott Air Jordan collaboration on the Air Jordan 33. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the Air Jordan 33 definitely is a more performance-based sneaker, but people have been wearing it for lifestyle. This is probably the least expected Air Jordan Travis Scott collaboration, and overall the sneaker doesn't look bad, but it's not that exciting. This Air Jordan 33 is covered in an olive upper with brown accents and of course the Travis Scott Cactus Jack branding. It's not a bad looking sneaker, it's probably the best Air Jordan 33 to drop, but again, it's kind of a confusing collaboration. That being said, it is still a Travis Scott Air Jordan collaboration, and because of that people are very excited, so of course this sneaker is gonna sell. Moving on to January 29th, we've got two new colorways of the Nike React Element 87. The first is the Allred colorway, which comes in sort of an orange, tan, and green, and the second is the Hyperfusion, which comes in a black, pink, and green. Both of these colorways are fine. I think I prefer the Hyperfusion because it's a little bit more interesting and a little bit more out there, but at this point, as much as people love the Nike React Element 87, I think Nike sort of jammed colorways down our throat, so people aren't too hyped on the shoe anymore. Even though these aren't bad colorways, in fact, I think the Hyperfusion colorway is pretty solid, people aren't as excited about this sneaker anymore, so for that reason, I think they're gonna sit. And then finally rounding off the month, on January 31st, we've got a couple different colorways of the Nike Epic React 2. I'm pretty excited about this sneaker because I really like the Epic React. However, I do have to say that this sneaker looks almost identical to the original, so I'm not exactly sure what they changed. Other than some of the new colorways, I think they added maybe a beefier TPU heel counter, but that looks to be about it. Because this really isn't that big of a change, and because there aren't really any collaborations tied to this sneaker, I don't think this shoe is really on many people's radar, so I think this sneaker is probably gonna sit. And then finishing things off, we've got the rumored release of the Tom Sachs Nike Mars Yard overshoe. This sneaker did actually make my worst sneakers of 2018 list because it did have its initial drop last year. This seems like a somewhat wider release of the shoe, which is still extremely limited. It's going to retail for $500 and it looks like you're putting your foot in a trash bag. So there's that. Because of the designer and because of the collaboration, this shoe really has no chance of staying in stock, even though it costs $500 and even though it looks the way it looks. So of course, I'm gonna have to give this shoe a sell. But that pretty much wraps up this sit or sell video for the end of January. So now I would love to know your thoughts on this list and which shoes on the list you're looking forward to most. So make sure to leave those comments in the comment section down below. Once again, huge thank you to the sponsor of today's video, Squarespace. When you're ready to start your own website or domain, head on over to squarespace.com/Seth Fowler for 10% off your first purchase. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe down below if you haven't yet, and I'll see you all in the next one.